Hey, good morning, everybody. The winter is coming and it's going to be a dark and cold winter if the leaders of the Western world don't do something about it. And what they need to do is to end the sanctions on Russia to ensure that we can get cheap Russian gas for European nations in the winter. And it's very interesting. Because you hear Western leaders and they usually talk and message us with deceit, deception, gaslighting. They're not straight with us. They try to beat around the bush and use psychological techniques to manipulate the narrative and spin narratives. Now, if you find a speech by Putin in Russia, you might not like what he says, but he's very, very direct and very, very clear. And he gave a speech a couple of days ago, and he said basically about Nord Stream 1, which is one of the big pipelines from Russia to Germany that provides gas. And he said about it, we're not going to sell you gas. We're not going to deliver gas to you until you end the sanctions. And this may go on for a very long time. So basically, he said, he's not going to sell European countries gas anymore while they put sanctions on Russia. To be honest with you, that's probably an eminently reasonable position because Western countries have put sanctions on Russia, which means that they can't really sell us gas and get paid for it. I mean, what Western countries have said, the sanctions they put on, is kind of like this, if you will. Imagine you have a car and you're selling it for £10,000. And then someone comes to you and they're interested in buying your car and they say to you, that's a great car, I want it, I need it. I'm only going to give you £5,000 for it, and I'm going to put the money in a bank account in another country that you can't access. Sell me your car. And I would say, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. First of all, if you want my car, you've got to give me the asking price of £10,000 and you've got to give me cash that I can use straight away. I'm not going to take any payment in a bank account in another country that I can't use. That's ridiculous. Why would I even consider doing any kind of deal or business like that? And then the person says, well, that's not fair. You're weaponizing your car as an economic act of warfare against me. I mean, this is kind of analogous to the position of the West. So the sanctions the Western nations have put on Russia is essentially saying, we're not going to buy anything from you unless you must accept payment from us in our own currencies, but we're going to freeze your bank account. So the Western sanctions have frozen Russian bank accounts, dollar accounts in New York, pound accounts in London, euro accounts in Frankfurt. All Russia's accounts in the West have been frozen. But Western countries still want to buy Russian goods by depositing money into the accounts that have been frozen, which they can't access and use, which is ridiculous. So Russia has said, if you want to buy anything from us, you have to pay in rubles in an account in Moscow so they can get payment and use the money that they're being paid for the goods that they sell the West, mostly oil and gas, bit of coal, very, very importantly, though, fertilizer. There's not enough fertilizer going round the West. Maybe there's for this year, but certainly for next year, there won't be fertilizer for planting food and seeds and so on. So that's a very, very serious issue for our food supply. So essentially, the sensible thing for Western nations to do would be to say, right, fair enough, we made a mistake with all of this thing, and we're going to stop trying to prolong the conflict in Ukraine. We want to end the conflict. Let's stop people being killed in Ukraine. Let's stop this war of attrition and, well, lift the sanctions and let's just get back to normal relations, do business as normal. And then we can continue to get Russian gas, the price will go down, things will get back to normal quite quickly, I imagine, because I think Russia would still like the money coming from the West to pay for their gas and raw materials, and we could get back to normal and then solve the cost of energy crisis, which we've got coming very, very soon as the temperatures get colder and the days get darker going into winter. Yesterday in the UK, we got a new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and in her opening speech, she praised the outgoing Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and she praised him for a number of things. But notably, I remember she praised him for the injections. That's a whole other issue I'm not going to talk about here. And she praised him for taking action in Ukraine, which I guess means prolonging a war, sending weapons there and putting sanctions on Russia. So it doesn't look like there is any wisdom there, just a continuation of the policy of the previous regime. It's not really any kind of difference. She was in his regime, so she's going to carry on. This is the trouble with politicians. I know, being in politics, hopefully not the trouble with me, but with those people in these parties that are just following the globalist narratives. They make mistakes, they do things which are either accidentally or deliberately destructive, and then they just double down on it and double down on it again and double down on it again. They can never admit that they've made a mistake or done something wrong, because that would lose them face, and then they probably have to resign and then hand over to someone else. They don't want to do that, as well as them being committed to the globalist narratives. A lot of them are puppets of the World Economic Forum and the big hedge funds like BlackRock and Vanguard, and they're in the Trilateral Commission and the Council for Foreign Relations and all these institutes and organizations. So they're committed to these goals anyway. But yeah, that was a position, and that's the position of most of the other prime ministers, presidents, chancellors, whatever they're called, in the various countries in Europe. So it doesn't look like there is going to be much of a change in policy, and they're just going to march our nations into economic oblivion without any kind of change. And this is just utterly insane and stupid and destructive. We need an immediate change in tack on the situation in Ukraine to stop prolonging the war, de-escalate the tensions, and to normalise relations with Russia, end sanctions, and then be able to buy Russian gas. Now, that's not directly affecting the UK, but it is indirectly affecting the UK. Of course, we don't buy a lot of gas from Russia, but the other countries that do and can't, because Russia's not going to sell gas to them anymore, like Germany and France and Italy, what they're going to do is they're going to buy gas from Norway. So yeah, in Britain, we get a lot of gas from Norway. We have some of our own as well. We have a lot of our own. But this is the thing. British gas doesn't stay in Britain. It's just sold on the open European market. Same as Norwegian gas. So the gas companies that extract it will sell it to whoever is the highest bidder. And there just isn't enough. You know, there's enough Norwegian and British gas to supply the needs of the UK and Norway and the Netherlands, and to make up the shortfall from what other countries don't get from Russia. But with no Russian gas, there just simply isn't going to be enough for the whole of Europe, and everybody's going to be competing for that gas. And so the price is going to go up and up and up and up. However much is made in Norway and Britain. In the Netherlands has got a little bit of gas as well from the North Sea. That is just going to increase in price because of scarcity. The demand for it is going to be much higher than the supply. So, you know, unless we solve this problem, whatever measures Liz Truss is now talking about putting in place, or capping the energy price and then providing government-backed loans to the gas company, which will all pay back in the future rather than today. You know, it isn't going to make, in the long term, it's not going to make any difference, because unless we solve this problem with Ukraine and Russia, the situation is just going to get worse and worse. That's the solution that's needed, as well as, of course, this is on top of the craziness of net zero. So that's another issue as well. Without the whole net zero climate alarmism idiocy, we wouldn't have this problem at all, because we would have invested in our power infrastructure. But, you know, this on top of the government literally dynamiting coal power stations and not investing in nuclear, not investing in reliable energy sources. The situation here with Russian gas makes everything 100 times worse than it needs to be if they hadn't been pursuing net zero for the last 20 years. So that is the solution. That's what needs to happen. Will it happen? Only with new leaders. So if you're in Germany, you know, I would suggest that you vote for the AfD. If you're in the UK, I suggest you vote for the Heritage Party, which of course I've set up to be a party that is for common sense, rather than all the other globalist parties that are in Westminster and in various other countries. You've got good parties which will rebuild our energy infrastructure with coal, oil, gas and nuclear. And if there are new reliable technologies that come along, I'm very happy to invest in them. But solar and wind are not reliable, continuous sources of energy. They're a total waste of money, and we shouldn't be putting them at the centre of our energy policy. Anybody with a brain could work that out. Some people just don't have much between the ears. Well, there you go. That's what we need to do. Let's get on with it. And I'm here to build a party that can get into power and restore good relations with Russia, to build our energy supply and power system once again. So we solve this problem and we never have this problem again. Please join us at heritageparty.org. Please also give me a thumbs up for this video and subscribe to my channel below as well if you would like. God bless you all.